Good evening, everyone. I wanted to give you a quick update on what is happening with Tropical Storm Francine, which is scheduled to become a hurricane. There have been some drastic changes since yesterday when I did an update on this storm that I'd like to share with you all. First, we'll start with what the National Hurricane Center is saying at the moment. Francine is still a tropical storm. The National Hurricane Center out of Miami, Florida, issued their latest update, which was a little over 2 hours ago now. Francine is moving northeastward across the western Gulf of Mexico, and it is putting warnings and watches out all along the Gulf. Moving into other information about it, it's approximately 135 miles east of the mouth of the Rio Grande in Texas, which puts it about 360 miles southwest of Morgan City, Louisiana. Presently, it's moving northeast or 35 degrees at 10 miles per hour, and the minimum central pressure is on 987 millivolts. So the lower that pressure gets, the more this storm will organize. And it's already kind of broken into two pieces. There's one part that's hitting Louisiana at the moment. We've been having weather from that for quite some time, but the major portion of this storm is not going to come into Louisiana until tomorrow, probably around noonish to 1 o'clock. Now, here's what's happening. Several things. Yesterday, when we talked about this storm, it looked like it was going to make landfall as a Category 2 hurricane at around Jennings, Lafayette, Louisiana area. So about center of the state is where it was going to come in at. That has drastically changed, and it is now projected to move towards the east more before it starts its northerly turn. At the moment, it's got it moving just east of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and they're projecting it to be even a little bit further east, kind of between Baton Rouge and Hammond, Louisiana. So what does that mean for us here in southeast Louisiana, where I'm located at? Well, it means that that hurricane is going to come in, or whatever it happens to be. We'll stop right there for a second because we don't know yet. But this storm is going to be approximately anywhere from 45 to 50 miles, the center of it, from my current location. It was projected yesterday to become a Category 2 hurricane. That may still be the case. It all depends on what this pressure does. It all depends on these winds that are coming out of the west that are kind of shearing the top of this thing off. So there's a big science to this as to how they project it. And it's very interesting if you ever have looked into this, how these storms form and what makes them become monsters or what doesn't. Either way, it's going to be devastating. At a minimum, they believe that today it will become a Category 1 hurricane, and then possibly by tomorrow, before landfall, becoming a Category 2. From listening to the different news weathermen locally here, they don't see that happening. They believe it's going to become a 1 and stay a 1. And then, of course, obviously, as it makes landfall, then it will start to come apart as it moves in. So we're still in this gray area of how powerful will this storm become. That doesn't matter at this point. What matters is if you're immediately to the right of this storm, you just need to be cautious about what's going to happen, because the right side of the storm is where the highest winds will be and gust. So at a minimum, what the National Hurricane Center is saying tonight is that at a minimum, there will be approximately up to 100 mile per hour wind gust, being a Category 1 hurricane. And then there's the storm surge as well. They're projecting along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana anywhere from 4 to 10 feet. That's pretty drastic. So let's look at a few other things right now. What's changed majorly in the advisory? A hurricane watch is in effect now for Lake Marpol and Lake Pontchartrain and the metropolitan New Orleans area, which was pretty much out of the equation yesterday and the day before. Now, for those of you that watch this channel a lot, you've seen the videos where we like to take our boat into Lake Pontchartrain, and we do that often. We go up and down the Chafunchi River with the boat. I've done videos showing you all that. I've done videos showing you us going out into Lake Pontchartrain. That's right down the road from me. Literally from my home to having the boat in the water is about 15 minutes, okay? So now Lake Pontchartrain falls under this hurricane watch. Give you a little geographic look at how this is. We're on what's called the North Shore. So we are on the north side of Lake Pontchartrain, in New Orleans is due south of me. So there's the causeway, which cuts directly across Lake Pontchartrain, which is the longest bridge in America. And so I'm on one side of the causeway. On the other side of the causeway is New Orleans. And it takes approximately 30 minutes to cross that by vehicle. It takes a little over an hour to do it by boat, which we've done as well. Tropical storm warning is now in effect because of the moving eastward for the Alabama coast, from the Mississippi-Alabama border to the Alabama-Florida border. Will it continue to move into the more east and affect that? Again, the local news agencies here, weathermen locally, don't see that happening. The National Weather Service Hurricane Center, on the other hand, says it is a possibility. The hurricane warning for the southwestern coast of Louisiana from Sabine Pass to Cameron has been changed to a tropical storm warning, and that's because it's now moving easterly before it starts the north turn. The storm surge warning has been discontinued for the Texas coast west of the Sabine Pass, which is right there on the Texas-Louisiana border. All warnings and watches have been discontinued for the Texas coast from the high island southward. Summary of warnings and watches in effect. A storm surge warning is in effect for the Sabine Pass, Texas to Mississippi, Alabama border, Vermilion Bay, Lake Marpol, and Lake Pontchartrain, again, where I'm located at. Hurricane warning is in effect for the Louisiana Gulf Coast from Cameron eastward to Grand Isle. If you're in Grand Isle and you have not evacuated yet, it's too late if you don't get out of there by midnight tonight. All right, it's going to be that devastating down there in Grand Isle. Hurricane watch is in effect to not only Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Marpol, but including the entire metropolitan New Orleans area. Storm surge warning means there's a danger of life-threatening of rising water moving inland from the coastline during the next 36 hours in indicated locations. A storm surge, which means there's a possibility of life-threatening situations where that the water comes inland and starts rising. That is what kills a lot of people with these systems. So let's take a look real quick at wind probabilities. What they were saying just 2 hours ago. And again, as this progresses overnight, and regardless if it becomes a 1 or a 2, this will change slightly. At 2100 Zulu, the center of Tropical Storm Francine was located near latitude 25.7 north, longitude 95.0 west, with a maximum sustained winds near at about 55 knots, which is roughly 65 miles per hour. As that increases and becomes a 1, boom, big difference between tropical storm winds and Category 1 hurricane winds and Category 2 hurricane winds. Changes of sustained 1 minute average wind speeds of at least 39 miles per hour to 58 up to 74. And that's for locations during the next 5 days. So we're going to have, any way you look at it, a strong wind system that's going to be affecting all of us here along the Gulf Coast. Wind speed probabilities. Let me bring that up for you real quick. What they're projecting to happen before midnight tonight is a wind increase of up to, and this is in the northern and eastern quadrant of the hurricane or tropical storm, which, but they're projecting hurricane, would be at approximately 90 miles per hour. As you go further out from that, it drops down to about 80 to 70 miles an hour. And then the lowest it gets currently, and that's on the farther edge, which is where we're at right now in Louisiana, is anywhere from 5 to 30 miles per hour. Here at my house, it's not too bad. We might have 5 to 10 mile per hour winds, if that, at the moment. That's going to change drastically as we go into the night here. Arrival times of the winds. So we're looking at by 8 p.m. tonight, which is shortly, we're looking at approximately 200 miles off the coast of Louisiana. Wednesday, 2 a.m., it starts moving up closer. And then by around 1 o'clock tomorrow, then we're going to have the maximum effects of whatever it happens to be, whether it is a Category 1 or a Category 2 hurricane. The cones still show it right now, tomorrow, at a minimum being a hurricane Category 1 by 1 p.m. Tomorrow. And then by Thursday at 1 a.m., back to a tropical storm. By then, it will have already crossed into Louisiana. They're projecting at that point it's going to take a northerly track and become a regular storm. So it's going to affect not just Louisiana, but as a storm, it's going to affect Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, up to, it's going to affect Kentucky, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana. And so what's the worst case scenario here? Worst case scenario would be that it becomes a Category 2 hurricane. But even if it's only a Category 1 hurricane, or even if it's just stayed a tropical storm, it's going to produce tornadoes. And those of you may remember when we did the videos back during Hurricane Laura and Hurricane Delta, when they affected us when we used to live in Lake Charles, Louisiana. That, of course, was a Category 4 hurricane pushing Category 5. I don't know this to be factual, but I've heard from different people that are in the weather business that Hurricane Laura was or could have been labeled a Category 5, but it had something to do with insurance purposes where the national or where the government got involved and said, don't category it's that, because there's a clause somewhere in insurance companies where they don't have to pay out if it's that big, if it's a Category 5. So they kept it at a Category 4. Now, to tell you why I believe that that was true, that it was a Category 5, when a hurricane comes on shore, immediately everything starts moving back down to a tropical storm, then to just a regular storm. And the farther inland it goes, the weaker it gets until it's just a regular storm. All right. Now, from Lake Charles, Louisiana, at the bottom southwest corner of the state, to the highest northwest part of the state is Shreveport, Louisiana. up where Barksdale Air Force Base is, if you're familiar with that area. So to drive up there takes a few hours. And we're talking approximately 200 miles. Laura hits as a quote 4, although, like I say, they said 5. And by the time its center reached Shreveport, Louisiana, it wasn't a tropical storm. It was a Category 1 hurricane. So it did massive damage all up from Lake Charles all the way up to Shreveport. And the worst part was the tornadoes. That's what destroyed our home. Had it not been for the tornado outbreak, we would have probably fared pretty well. But the tornadoes snapped trees everywhere. And it looked like a bomb went off. You can go on my YouTube channel. You can go on DouglasDucote.com on the website, and you can find those videos of the damage that Hurricane Laura did to us. And then, of course, put 2 giant oak trees through the house. And then within 35 days, Hurricane Delta was a Category 4, and it followed the exact same track that Hurricane Laura did. And then, of course, a few months later, we had a massive flood that wasn't affected, that had nothing to do with hurricanes, just a huge weather system that was just inundated the area with rain for a very short period of time. But it was so much rain that the creeks and rivers around the area couldn't handle it. It wasn't, it's coming down too fast. But also, the creeks and rivers had not been cleaned out properly since Hurricane Laura and since Hurricane Delta. It put so much stuff in them that water just backed up into the city. And most of us that were near the water areas, our houses went under. We lost our home to that as well. I mean, we hadn't even recovered from Hurricane Laura when the flood happened. We were living in our driveway in an RV waiting for insurance when the flood comes. And then so the water fills the house up, 5 foot of water, comes up into the RV we're living in, destroys it, all of our vehicles. It was a mess. So not only have me and my wife lived through those 2 devastating hurricanes, we also lived through Hurricane Rita, Hurricane Katrina. I was down in New Orleans the night that they were evacuating the city. And Hurricane Katrina, to the west side of it, was massive devastation. Mississippi got the blunt of it. Mississippi and southwest Alabama. I mean, homes just gone, especially along the Gulf Coast area, Biloxi, Gulfport, Mississippi, total devastation. New Orleans took the front of it, and it really didn't do too much damage to New Orleans. What happened was the pumps in the levee system, because New Orleans is below sea level, the pumps there just were overwhelmed and quit working. And therefore, sections of the levee started breaking. The pumps couldn't pump the water out. And then a good portion of New Orleans, as you know, if you watched on the news, flooded. Massive amount, loss of life and loss of property. So I'm no weather expert by any means. I know a pretty good bit about weather because of being an aviator and also being in the military and aviation, being a flight engineer. Weather is part of our learning process. And anybody that knows anything about flying, you know that even if you just want to become a private pilot and fly a little bitty Cessna 150, the majority of your written test is going to be on weather, because weather is what gets most pilots in trouble and will get you killed in a split second if you're not aware of what's happening in your surroundings and how to read the weather. much less be able to read what the weather service is putting out, but also be able to look out in the sky and name the different types of clouds, for instance. So all that combined together, and having it lived through it and experienced it, all I can tell you is if you are east of Baton Rouge, you're in, let's say, Livingston Parish, you're in Tangipahoa Parish, you're over by Hammond, Louisiana, those kind of areas, especially if you're south of Interstate 12, take this serious, even if it's just a Category 1, and get your family together, get your important documents, get your pets, and just get out of the area for a few hours until this thing moves through, because it's not worth risking life and limb over. Trust me, I've seen it too much. And even when I worked in law enforcement, as well as in the military, when we did hurricane evacuations, we'd use our Chinook helicopter to help people get out of areas. We'd come back in with relief supplies. I've seen the devastation that these storms can do up close and personal. And you don't want to be a part of that, okay? It's very disturbing, to say the least. So again, currently right now, Francine is still a tropical storm. This is a current view of what she looks like right now. As you can see, the circulation here is getting pretty tight. And here's the system that's sheared off, and that's what we're experiencing right now. But this smaller area down here, as it moves north tomorrow, that's where your damaging wind and your storm surge is going to come from. And that's something to really, really think about, take serious. If you're down south of New Orleans, you're down, let's say, around Lafitte, places like that, you're down in Houma, Thibodeau, I'd get out of there. All right, just plain and simple, it's not worth losing your life over. Okay. My plan tomorrow, depending on the exact track and depending on what the wind speeds are and what the storm surge is on Lake Pontchartrain, my plan right now is to go down there on the lake, which is literally just 15 minutes from me, and do a live video to show you what a hurricane looks like as it's coming inland. Okay. I expect it to be very, very windy and lots of rain. Of course, I'm not going to get out in the rain like they do on the Weather Channel. I'm going to be safe. I'm going to stay in my vehicle, or I'm going to get in an area where I feel secure. And there's plenty of places down there to do that I feel safe doing, to be able to bring that to you live and show it to you, so you can see what it's doing to that lake. And for those of you, like I say, that have watched some of my videos in the past, when we go out on our boat on Lake Pontchartrain, when there's no storm, you can compare that to what it's going to be like tomorrow. And even if it doesn't become a Category 1 and it stays a tropical storm, what you're going to see, what I will show you, is massive change in the waves and how damaging it would be if you were out there in a boat. All right. That would not be the place that you want to ride this out on. So anyhow, that's the current status right now. I hope that helps for any of you that are in harm's way. I also hope that if you believe in the power of prayer, that you will keep everybody in Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, even Alabama, parts of Florida. And as this storm moves forward and upwards, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, because of tornado damage as it starts spitting these tornadoes out, which is going to happen. Sadly, there's going to be people that are going to lose their life, and there's going to be a lot of property loss as well. The most Devastating thing that's probably going to happen for us down here in southeast Louisiana is going to be power outages. I expect power lines to go down, which is typical in major storms, especially if this thing does become a category 1 or God forbid a category 2 compared to where its track is now. If it becomes a category 2 with the track where it is right now coming in between Baton Rouge and Hammond, that's not a very good sign. So here at the Ducote house, after having lived through many of these hurricanes and understand what power outage is like in the South when it's 110 degrees in the, at 9 a.m. And 100% humidity, we invested in a whole home generator system. So minute power goes out, this generator will kick on and we'll be able to run the entire house. All our appliances, everything will run just as normal as if we hadn't lost power. We also have right outside the gate of our subdivision, we live in a gated community, but right outside is a fire department. So one of the first things that gets power back is your emergency responders. So they're going to get power back to police stations, fire departments, ambulances, things like that. That's the first thing. So even if we do have power out here, the people that live in my neighborhood or this area won't be out for that long, maybe a few days, if that, before power gets restored. So please keep everybody in your prayers. If something does break that's drastic between now and tomorrow, I'll come back and do something about it, whether it's a video or a live show. Other than that, stay tuned for tomorrow. Like I say, I plan to go out to Lake Pontchartrain and do a live show so you can see the effects of this storm as it's coming into this area where I'm at, which is going to be the worst part of the storm, which is the northern right corridor of the circulation. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, especially right now. Our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America, and may God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning in to this special edition of the Douglas Ducote Show, and I will see you all, besides tomorrow, if I can do the live broadcast. I'll be back on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central for the normal show that's on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Central Time. Thank you, everybody. God bless you. Be safe wherever you're at, and I'll be seeing you soon.